Sometimes one of the hardest things for neurodivergent people like us is to do the things that help us. We know that meditation and spiritual practice can be good for us, right? It can be really hard to make that a way of life. Yet it is possible, and I want to show you how by talking with people like us who have lived experience of already creating this spiritual way of life, a way of life that really helps them thrive and ultimately to give the gifts of their wild heart to the world. This interview is with Derrick Ivey. Derrick is the founder of DGT Wellness in Fort Collins, Colorado. Derrick is a friend and has been a mentor for quite a while. He's one of the most generous humans I know. He is so caring and he just shares so much wisdom. And he's really good at what he does, which is healing and hypnosis, hypnotherapy. Derrick is very open about his history with alcoholism and drug use to help manage his OCD symptoms. And he talks about how he changed his life through his spiritual practice, through meditation. I really love this. He says, I really enjoy helping amazing people with big hearts bust through the crap that is holding them back. My calling is to help human centered professionals journey deeper into tools and energetic technologies that revolutionize their own practices. There is no greater joy to me than watching another soul have those light bulb moments of life changing clarity. Derrick's passion is really playing with energy in everyday life. It's a pretty good hobby, I reckon.
Thank you, Sally, for having me. I really appreciate it being having this opportunity to be here.
Yeah, it's really great. Really great to have you. Um, and I'd love to uh, hear more about you. And yeah, coming at it from the perspective of somebody who is neurodiverse, quite possibly watching this, um, what what made you want to talk about your spiritual way, your spiritual practice?
So, I guess for me, it was always really hard for me to feel like I fit in the world and spiritual practice and business, so and there was people that were there for me who were there to share their light and share their journey. So for me, it's an important part of my continuing work to continue to share with people that need to hear my story to help them get to where they want to be and open to life in deeper ways and really find a way that they fit. So I think that's one of the reasons that I love doing things like this is because it gives me an opportunity to give back what was given to me very freely and generously.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, would you like to share, some of those stories? Who was important in giving to you? What did that look like?
So I guess the best way to approach that would be just kind of starting earlier on in my life. And I think when before I was about like 21 or so, I had this, what I now know is called a hole in the soul, or, there was something missing that I couldn't put my finger on, but I felt that gaping gap between where I am and where I wanted to be. But it's like it was so hard because I didn't know where I wanted to be or what that would look like, but I just knew that where I was at was not that,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was far from where I wanted to be. So earlier in my life, as we talked about, I self-medicated with alcohol from a young age, like 16 is when I started drinking. And that was, to me, when I found alcohol, it felt like I found God. And it was like, okay, I can finally be myself. I can finally be courageous and be liked by others and all of that.
Wow.
But then I quickly learned that that was not a perfect way because there was so many negative consequences and it kept putting me deeper and deeper into a pit. So the first people that I can remember that, thinking throughout my whole life, there's always been those people that really inspired me with their light. Even I remember when I was in elementary school and I had I was going through a really rough time because my parents had just gotten a divorce. And when you're a little kid, that's the one of the worst things that could happen. And my parents were always supportive, but I remember there was a teacher at my elementary school that she wasn't even my teacher, but I was crying in the hallway one day and she listened to me. She talked to me. She
Oh,
made me feel comfortable. And so that's the first example that I could really think of. And I think that awoke something in me to be like, I want to be like that someday.
oh,
I want to be that comfort for someone because, it made such a difference in my life. And as time went on and, through when I started struggling with alcohol and drugs and all of that, there was people that helped me get out of that. And there was people that helped me when I wanted to start my business, so I feel like it's these special people that I've met along the way that really give me that inspiration to be that for others.
that's so beautiful. Yeah. One person can just leave that kind of impression, right? So as a child, going back to like, what we talked about in your intro, what did that look like for you as a child, having that spiritual, or growing up, having that spiritual awareness? But
At the time, yeah, that's a good question, Sally. And at the time, I can't say that I knew that's what it was because I didn't. My family was not particularly, definitely not spiritual. We went to church here and there, but that was like a thing for Sunday, and the rest of the week, nobody talked about anything spiritual or anything like that. So I think the first manifestation of having those gifts didn't feel like a gift. It felt more like I'm different. I experience things way stronger than others. Um, different things have always driven me than, my fellow classmates, or I've always been driven by a deeper desire, to fulfill the deepest things that I could do. And I've always been an extreme person, like all or nothing. And now I'm seeing, as I get older, it's part of my gift is how intense I feel things and how intense my energy is. But at the time, I think the main thing is I didn't really know what was happening. I just had this deeper, more loud energy that and I remember with, like, earlier in life, like, intuitively knowing what meditation was. Like,
Yeah.
I always, like, had this the first time I ever heard about meditation, it was like I thought in my mind, like, "Oh, yeah, I know what that is." Like, I know it it was almost like I was waiting for coming back into that, because my soul already knew that that was something that I enjoyed.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I think, I remember being in my teens actually, and I wanted to move. I wanted to move. I remember this time I was just in my room. I just wanted to move. And it felt like I was moving something. And my hands wanted to move in a certain
Mhm.
way. And like now I know what I was doing was, I guess, moving with the energy and what my body wanted to
Right.
do, right? And now I know I do practice Qigong and I know what that is. And these things, that this is who we are, right? Isn't it? We're sensitive. This is in us. This practice is already in us, isn't it? And
Oh, yeah,
wants to come
absolutely.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a perfect way to put how my experience was. Is And there was a lot of little things like that, there was, and same thing here, like, I remember, doing that with my hands and feeling like, "What is that? Like,
Mm.
what am I feeling?" Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, there's a lot of different things like that throughout life that I really now it makes more sense. But yeah, it's like this practice, it's like we have this so deeply within us because that's who we are.
Ah, exactly
And
right.
I think the spirit when I found spiritual practice, it was such a relief, because now I knew where to direct that energy, and how to,
Uh,
and like it made things make sense that I already knew within my soul, but it made more sense. It gave me something to work towards with my own the way I already was naturally.
yeah, yeah. So in your 20s, you went to practice you were practicing Vipassana, well, probably among other things. But I remember you saying to me once, like you got really focused on it, and you would meditate for like 8 hours a day at one point. Is that
Oh, yeah.
yeah? And like, what was that like? And was that? I think you did. You have to bring that back. Like, did you? What was that like? That experience coming to that and coming into
Yeah.
doing that style of meditation and
So, yeah, that I would love to share about this. So, yeah, in my 20s, that's when I was actually first introduced to meditation practice. And the way that I got into this was I used to go to an alcohol support group, and that was my door into all of this. It was my door, but it wasn't my path. But that in that group, they really highly encouraged finding your own conception of a higher power and of your own spiritual path. And someone that I hung out with a lot at that time had already was a little bit ahead of me on their journey. Well, not ahead of me, but they had already discovered Vipassana practice, and I would go hang out at their house, and they taught me how to do Vipassana. And so I remember I went and I bought a Zafu to go to sit on, and candles and incense, and it just felt like home from the beginning. It I just remember that period of my life was a lot of darkness. It was a lot of heaviness and hardship, and it felt like I was moving upstream. And but then when I found that practice, those moments of my practice were like these little islands of peace throughout a whole sea of darkness. And
Wow.
so that's what prompted me to meditate more and more. And when I was meditating, that was when I felt the best. So I think, and it also gave me a little more space in between my thoughts, and a little more pause time so I didn't get as reactive. And then it's like once I started meditating, all of these really amazing things started happening in my life, and I started meeting new friends, and I started finding all of these books that inspired me, and listening to these dharma talks of Buddhist teachers, and just really deep wisdom that really changed the way that I saw everything.
Wow.
And that really opened my path up, and then it's like I just kept going. I think the only thing I've done right consistently is I didn't give up.
Mm.
It's like I
Wow.
kept moving forward.
And what a marked experience of coming to meditation and that being such a wonderful experience amidst all the difficulty. And it's not always that clear why to do meditation when you come at meditation, but for you it was really like this is phew, I really need this, I guess, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing it did for me, Sally, is it made me realize a lot of the darkness that I felt. It I wasn't as strongly identified with it. Like up to that point before my practice started, that's when, I would be freaking out about every little thing. I would just, if I had a thought, it automatically I took it as truth, and r- totally let it dominate me. And that's when I started meditating. So when I started being able to kind of lean back and just observe,
Yeah.
like little logs floating down a river, like those were my thoughts, like,
Yeah.
okay, there's that thought, and then there's that thought again. but then it didn't have as much power
Mm. And
because I could just be more of the observer.
yeah, yeah. And just for people watching, that's the experience that was your experience of OCD, right? Like having a thought and it just dominating, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I used to get just my head would be spinning with all of these different worst case scenarios, and just I would be completely at their mercy at all of these thoughts and stories, and yeah, that the practice gave me more spaciousness to allow those things to pass through instead of getting stuck on them.
It's such, I guess it's such a, it really shines a light, I guess, for what's possible. I mean, everybody's path is different, obviously, but yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all this. So it wasn't difficult for you to practice. It wasn't something you, I guess, had to find ways to do, to motivate yourself. Is that fair to say?
I actually, in my experience, I didn't really need to motivate myself to practice because the meditation, that was what I enjoyed. And it was actually harder those moments that I was not
That makes
able to practice and surround myself with that. So it's like, and that was another thing that was really hard for me transitioning into is how do you be in practice and be in the world? And because, I was so, I would reach these very amazing states in meditation. And when I was in my 20s, I would get attached to those higher states. And I would be very like, I want to feel like this all the time, but then I would have to go to work and it would completely knock me into the polarity of that energy, just this really strong sense of unrest and just like nails on chalkboard, like so much tension, and that was hard for me. It was like learning how to be in my practice but also be in the world, and how to bring my practice everywhere and
mm,
integrate it in everything, every moment.
mm, mm. And integrating those experiences, I guess, like you said, like yeah, it can be,
Mhm.
we can get quite attached to those. And yeah, like you said, yeah,
Mhm.
coming back into the world, how do you, when you know you are the universe or whatever it is you
Yeah.
experience, how do you then come back to everyday life? Yeah, that's what was,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it's brutal. For me, it was.
And I guess, like, what does what does practice mean to you now? Like, and what does it look like? That's two questions.
Now,
Yeah.
so it's really evolved, and I don't often think about how much it has evolved
Mm,
because I have a tendency to just be so trying to get ahead and trying to, what can I create and all that, and I forget, wow, look how far you've come. It's like for myself. And so for my practice now is not as extreme as it used to be. So when I first got into practice, I meditated like I would have a weekend off of work and I would meditate for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't really recommend it to anyone, even though it was my path and it worked great for me and it opened so much up. It's like you don't have to be that extreme. But and I used to be so hard on myself, and so, like, if you don't do this every day, then if you don't do it today, your day is ruined. It's how dare you not show up for your practice? And
Wow.
so I think now it's a lot more it looks different every day now, and for me, there's many parts that go into my personal practice, and I think the main one is meditation. I do still meditate daily, but not I don't meditate for a set amount every day now. I would say now probably like 20 minutes in the morning, and that's pretty good, and
Yeah.
maybe 20 minutes later in the day of just Vipassana. Um, and then I've also gained a lot of other tools along the way as well, like Reiki, like EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping. And I've learned through all of that that everything is energy and that there's many different ways to get up a mountain, but they're all going to the top of the mountain. And so I don't really concern myself as much now with things having to be a certain way. I've let go of so much expectation of myself and others through that's one of the fruits of my practice, absolutely, is like having that awareness. But yeah, I would say now and journaling is a huge one for me. Um, so I journal every single day, at least a couple pages of free flow consciousness, just spit it out and put it on paper, and so much happens in that space. And I think now my practice every day is more of it's not so much about what I do and how that looks in my practice. It's more I'm creating the space for myself every single day that I get to show up for myself inside of. And I get to, that's my touchstone because the world is crazy. There's all kinds of weird things happening in the world. There's weird things happening even in my own life. But there's also that space every day is where I get to come back to me and I get to come back to source and really just be. And that's been the most beautiful thing because then no matter what happens in the world, it doesn't really affect my sense of well being because I have that foundation.
Really integrated that practice. Like life has become practice, I guess you could say.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And every moment of my day is my practice
Mm,
and like and I've made it a lot I've made it work for me, and it might not be work for someone else to
yeah.
do what works for me, but I've learned what does work for me, and I've also learned some amazing ways to help other people find their own way too. So that's been a huge gift.
Do you think, yeah, you said that before, there's many ways up the mountain. And yeah, helping people find their way. And
Mhm.
that's my own experience as well, or my own feeling is really it's so
Yeah.
idiosyncratic. what do we each need? Yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that because I'll stop talking. You talk about it.
It really is so personal for every soul. Like we all have our own unique purpose here, our own unique way of being, and I guess I've just learned there's no wrong way. Like there's no, if it works for you and it makes you happy and it fills your soul and makes you feel connected with who you came here to be, then I think it's perfect. And so it's like I think love is the most important thing in helping other people find their path, is just being that space of love for people and letting them know that it doesn't matter what other people think you should do or what other people think about you, or it's like that old quote, what other people think about you is none of your business.
Mm.
And that's true. It's like that's their dream, that's their prerogative, but it doesn't have to define your practice or the way that you show up for yourself in your own unique way. And so I think the main thing I've learned through helping other people find their own unique path is just that love is always going to guide the way to find what is right for each person. And, some people, they will figure it out really fast. Some people, they might take a lot longer, but that's both are perfect. And I think just being that force of love for some people can be what empowers them to find those things that really work for them personally, because they feel supported, loved, seen, heard. And so yeah, it's just it is so personal though. Like and it's really come out in the last 2 years since my program has been out and we've taken a lot of people through it.
Yeah.
And I've seen the beauty of how it's like I'm teaching the same practices, the same protocols to every single person, but the expression comes out in a beautiful way that's so different for each person. And I think the secret to doing that, to like creating something that can be interpreted in so many different ways, is just that sense of love, and that I can't quite remember what else I was gonna say,
Yeah,
but
yeah. What's your
it
program? What's your
was
program
something
called?
about love, I know
Yeah,
that.
love. I mean, we just get once we start talking about love, it's just like, woo, where are we?
Yeah, it's like so much coming at me.
What's just quickly, what's your program called?
The program is called Quantum Shift,
Yeah.
and it's a program that is specifically for human-centered professionals or practitioners that are really looking for tools to integrate into their practice with others. So it's like we have people that are social workers to Reiki healers to, and but really what it is, it teaches you how to do quantum hypnosis, how to take people into a trance state to do deeper healing work. We do a lot of really fun things in the program: past life regression, soul retrieval, psychic communication. in the causal realm. And the one thing I've learned though is that this program is not for everyone, and it's it's for those that have that deeper hunger to keep expanding. And you know what I've learned that's really interesting? When I first started this program, I was so excited to bring it to the world. And I was just like, people are gonna love this. Like, because I loved it.
Yeah.
Like when I learned all this stuff, that was like, wow, my mind is blown. But I learned that not everyone wants to heal that deeply. And so it's not for people that don't really want to go that deep. It's for those people that have that deep, deep desire to take things as far as they can take it. And that's always been me. Like
Yeah.
and we're talking about meditation practice, even from the beginning when I was like 21, learning how to meditate, I was like, I want to see how far I can take this. I want to see how much of this I can experience. And so I've learned it's for those people like us that are craving that deeper expansion. I think it would be really scary for someone that that's not where they're at. And nothing's wrong with not wanting to. That's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it was a lesson for me to see that not everyone has that path.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm so grateful though that I am one of those that wants to take things as much as I can, because I've expanded so much in this avatar. Like while I've been in this body,
Mhm.
I've had so much expansion.
Mm. What does that what does that what does that give you? What does that look like in life to have that expansion and to have those fruits
Yeah,
of practice, I guess?
that's a good question. And for me, it looks like there's this part inside of me that knows whether or not I am giving something my all.
Mm,
And I think for me, it's about always being at my maximum level of love and effort that I put into things. Whatever that is, whether it's doing the dishes, whether it's teaching my class, whether it's whatever, but it's like I can feel it if I'm not fully giving my all to something. And I've learned to stay away from those places that I don't feel inspired and I don't
mm,
feel, because that's my guidance system telling me, okay, move over, like, this is not the right place for you.
right.
It's like right now, like, I feel very, very like I love this conversation we're having. This conversation is expanding me so much. So it's like that tells me that I'm in the right place. I'm supposed to
Mm.
be doing this right now,
Yay.
right? So that's kind of how I see everything. Like it's either I'm completely opened up, or and that's how I know I'm on the right path, is that energy.
I think personally that's where I'm learning to be. So that's really interesting to hear you talk about that. Yeah, it's good. Really good. Really helpful. Um,
Yeah.
hopefully that
And
helps some other people.
it's like it's been a desire of mine to, like, I want to see how far my spiritual practice can take me. I
Mm,
want to see how much I can create in my business. It's to me it's just fun.
mm,
It's like we came for fun, into these bodies to have these experiences. So it's like, have fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Do what you love. Do what makes your heart happy.
yeah. Love it. I love it. And do you think, like, this is a question that I've got a bunch of questions here, and I'm like just running
Hmm.
my eyes over them, see what I'm drawn to. But is this your true self? Is this your true self coming out? I think the answer is yes.
I would say that's a very deep question
It is, yeah.
because I would say, yeah, like, is, well, are you talking about, like, are you talking to my highest self right now? Yeah, I would say from my limited human perspective, I feel very aligned with my highest version.
Yeah,
But I think who I really am as a soul, I'll never fully understand while I'm in this body.
mm,
Like, I'm never gonna fully, there's still lessons to learn. There's still things that are gonna throw me off my center and tempt me to take back old programs and stuff like that. But
still very human, right? Yeah.
absolutely, I give it my all, and I feel very aligned with the highest version that I can possibly create at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I yeah, thank you for speaking to that. Yeah, I mean, yesterday I was very open and energetic and feeling joyous. And then this morning I woke up too early. Well, I woke up early and then my cat started throwing up when he was on the bed,
Oh.
and I said, "Get off the bed!" And then he threw up on the floor, and I had to clean it all up, and it was first thing in the morning. So that's just life, isn't
Right.
it?
Life is life me.
I wanted to just be meditating, but anyway, I don't
I
know if that
know
was a
it.
good example,
It's,
but
yeah, and that's a perfect thing to look at life. It's like, we always have this idea that things are supposed to be a certain way, and I think as humans, like, we feel this sense of entitlement sometimes where it's like, well, I did all the things that I was supposed to do, so I should have this result, but it's not like that. We're very, we control very little. I guess that would be the way I would put that, is we control a tiny sliver of everything. Like,
yeah, yeah, I feel that. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of this wonderful conversation, which I've loved to hear your story and your insight. Just it's just so great. I guess like what would you say to yeah, just in a nutshell, what would you say to somebody who is neurodivergent, diverse, that maybe finds it hard to meditate or is not sure or is in that place of not knowing what their path is, what would you say to them?
I would say just start.
Hmm.
It doesn't take imperfect action. Don't, it's always going to be ever changing. So just get your feet wet. just do it. Just start showing up for yourself, and let it be a journey, and let it be messy, let it be imperfect, let it be what it needs to be for you. And also, there's an immense power in the communities that are around us, that there's people that are there to help you too. It's like you're never alone. And don't be afraid to ask someone else who is a little bit ahead of where you want to be. How do you do that? How do you get there? Because I think it's a gift for them too. If you're struggling and you reach out, that's a gift for that person you reach out to also.
That's beautiful.
And sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like just do it and let it be what it is going to be.
Mm. Love it. Yeah, that's so great. I have thank you for that. I have one more burning question, which is, what is your favorite dinosaur?
My favorite dinosaur, pterodactyl.
Ah, there you go. You answered it. Just like that. Pterodactyl. What do you like about why do you like pterodactyls?
I think because my cat reminds me of a pterodactyl.
Oh,
So my partner and I were just talking the other day at calling him that. And so,
that's
and
so
I've always loved pterodactyls for some reason. I think they're just because they're kind of their own little weirdos, and I love that.
love it. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Your cat looks like a pterodactyl. I'm going to be looking out for that now. It's so good. Is there anything final you'd like to say, or
um, I just say love to everyone, and
yeah?
life is lifey.
uh, I love that. Life is lifey. Yeah. Definitely I use that, and I quote you every time I use it.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you so much, Derek, for
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Sally. Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, real pleasure. Yeah, great. I think what I love about that interview is just feeling into how, like, it just feels like Derek is just really strong in who he is and in his universe, showing up for that every day. He's really human, like, he's just open about his experience, and it's really touching because I think it helps me, and I'm sure others, like, feel safe to be who they are, and that's really important, I think. I really hope listening to Derek that you feel some connection with his story. And Derek has his own podcast, so check it out and check out his details. Derek's really giving the gifts of his wild heart to the world. Thanks for joining. And if you liked this interview, definitely like and subscribe. And remember, the world needs the gifts of your wild heart. It really does. Thanks.